Ambassador Zorvax stood on the command bridge of the Kethar's Pride and looked at the small blue planet on the main screen. He had seen many worlds in his long life. He had watched civilizations fall. He had accepted the surrender of kings and queens from 100 different species. But something about this little world made him feel strange. He pushed the feeling away. It was nothing. Just another conquest. "Status report," he said. His voice was calm and cold. "All 12,000 ships are in position, Ambassador," said his second officer, a thin creature with gray skin and 4 eyes. "We have formed a complete sphere around the planet. Nothing can enter or leave without our permission." Zorvax nodded slowly. The Dominion of Kethar had done this many times before. They were a coalition of 12 spacefaring species, united by one simple truth: the strong take from the weak. They had conquered over 400 civilizations across 3 galaxies. Some had fought back. None had won. "What do we know about these humans?" Zorvax asked. The science officer stepped forward. She was a member of the Vrel species, known for their intelligence and their love of data. "They are a young species, Ambassador. They developed space travel only 200 years ago. They have colonized their nearest planet, which they call Mars, and they have mining operations in their asteroid belt. Military strength? Minimal. They have approximately 300 patrol vessels. Their weapons are primitive kinetic systems and basic energy weapons. Nothing that could scratch the paint on our smallest fighter." Zorvax allowed himself a small smile. "And their population? 12 billion on their homeworld. Another 2 billion spread across their colonies. 14 billion workers for the Dominion," Zorvax said. "Not a bad harvest." He walked closer to the main screen and studied the planet called Earth. It was covered in blue water and green land and white clouds. It looked peaceful. "Soft. Weak. Open a communication channel to their government," Zorvax commanded. "It is time to give them their options." The communication officer worked at his station for a moment. "Channel open, Ambassador. We are broadcasting to all frequencies on their planet." Zorvax straightened his uniform and put on his most commanding expression. He had given this speech many times. The words came easily. "People of Earth," he began. "I am Ambassador Zorvax of the Dominion of Kethar. Your world has been selected for integration into our great coalition. You have 1 solar rotation to surrender unconditionally. If you comply, your lives will be spared. You will serve the Dominion, and in return, you will receive protection and purpose. If you refuse," he paused for effect, "you will be destroyed. Every man, woman, and child on your planet will die. Your cities will burn. Your history will be erased. You will be forgotten." He let the silence hang for a moment. "The choice is yours. We await your response." He gestured for the communication officer to end the transmission. Then he settled into his command chair and waited. This was always his favorite part. The waiting. The fear building on the planet below. The desperate meetings of their leaders. The arguments between those who wanted to fight and those who wanted to surrender. In the end, they always surrendered. They always did. "Ambassador," the communication officer said after several minutes, "we are receiving a response from the planet. Put it on screen." The main display flickered, and a human appeared. It was a female, Zorvax noted, with dark skin and gray hair and eyes that seemed to look right through him. She wore a military uniform covered in medals and symbols he did not recognize. "I am Admiral Chen Wei of Earth's United Defense Council," the human said. "We have received your message." "And your answer?" Zorvax asked. The human smiled. It was not the smile of fear. It was not the smile of surrender. It was something else entirely. Something that made Zorvax feel that strange feeling again. "You are welcome to try," she said. The screen went black. Zorvax stared at the empty display for a long moment. Around him, his bridge crew shifted nervously. No one had ever responded like that before. No species had ever been so casual about their own destruction. "Ambassador?" his second officer asked. "What are your orders?" Zorvax pushed down his unease. It was nothing. The humans were simply too primitive to understand the danger they faced. They would learn. They would all learn. "Maintain the blockade," he ordered. "Begin preparations for the ground invasion. We will give them their 1 solar rotation, and when it passes, we will show them what happens to species that defy the Dominion." The hours passed slowly. Zorvax spent them reviewing data about the human species. They were strange creatures. They had only 2 eyes, 2 arms, 2 legs. They were soft and fragile, unable to survive in space without extensive protection. Their lifespans were short, barely a century for most of them. They should have been nothing. They should have been easy. But the more Zorvax read, the more uncomfortable he became. The humans had a violent history. They had fought countless wars among themselves. They had created weapons capable of destroying their entire planet and had come close to using them several times. They had survived ice ages and plagues and disasters that would have ended most species. And through it all, they had kept going. They had kept building. They had kept reaching for the stars. There was a word in the human language that Zorvax found particularly interesting: spite. The translators explained it as the desire to succeed specifically because someone else wanted you to fail. It was an emotion that most species in the galaxy did not possess, but humans seemed to thrive on it. Ambassador. The voice of his science officer broke through his thoughts. We are detecting something strange on the planet's surface. Define strange. There are energy readings from beneath one of their oceans, very deep. The Pacific, they call it. The readings do not match anything in our database. Zorvax frowned. Ancient technology, unknown, Ambassador. But the power levels are significant. How significant? The science officer hesitated. Higher than our entire fleet combined. For the first time in his long career, Zorvax felt something he did not want to name. It felt too much like fear. Send a probe, he ordered. I want to know what they are hiding down there. The probe was launched within minutes. It was a small device, designed for stealth and speed. It slipped past Earth's primitive satellites and descended toward the planet's surface. It entered the atmosphere without resistance. It dove into the ocean, and then it stopped transmitting. What happened? Zorvax demanded. Unknown, Ambassador. The probe simply stopped. Malfunction? Our probes do not malfunction. Zorvax stood and walked to the main screen. The little blue planet hung there in space, looking peaceful and harmless. But now he could not stop thinking about what might be hiding beneath its surface. What were the humans concealing? What secrets did they keep? Send another probe, he ordered. Send 10 more. All 11 probes were lost within seconds of entering the ocean. Around Zorvax, his bridge crew exchanged worried glances. This was not normal. This was not how conquests were supposed to go. The target species was supposed to be afraid. They were supposed to beg. They were supposed to make it easy. Ambassador, his second officer said carefully, perhaps we should request reinforcements from the Dominion Council. For a primitive species that cannot even leave their own solar system, Zorvax snapped. We have 12,000 ships. We have the most powerful military force in 3 galaxies. We do not need reinforcements for this. But even as he said the words, he was not sure he believed them. The solar rotation ended. Earth had not surrendered. Zorvax stood on his bridge and watched the planet below. Part of him wanted to simply destroy it from orbit, burn the whole world to ash and move on to the next conquest. But the Dominion Council had been clear. They wanted the human population alive for labor. Destroying the planet was not an option. Launch the first wave of landing craft, Zorvax ordered. 200 vessels, full assault teams. His second officer hesitated. Ambassador, should we not conduct more reconnaissance first? The energy readings from the ocean are not our concern, Zorvax interrupted. We have overwhelming force. Whatever toys the humans have hidden, they cannot stand against the might of the Dominion. Launch the landing craft. Now. The order was given. 200 landing craft detached from the fleet and began their descent toward Earth. Zorvax watched their progress on the tactical display. They entered the atmosphere without resistance. They passed through the cloud layer. They approached the major population centers, and then they disappeared. Not destroyed, not shot down. They simply vanished from the sensors. One moment they were there, the next they were gone. 200 ships, 50,000 soldiers, gone. What happened? Zorvax asked, his voice barely a whisper. I don't know, Ambassador. The tactical officer's hands were shaking. There was no weapons fire, no explosions. They just stopped existing. Zorvax stared at the empty tactical display. His mind raced through possibilities. Cloaking technology? No. Even cloaked ships left some trace. Teleportation? The humans were not advanced enough for that. Were they? Pull up the visual records from the landing craft, he ordered. Show me what happened. The main screen flickered to life. It showed the view from the lead landing craft as it descended through Earth's atmosphere. Everything looked normal. The sky was blue. The clouds parted, the ground approached, and then, something rose from the ocean below. It was massive. That was the first thing Zorvax noticed. It was bigger than anything he had ever seen. Bigger than the largest Dominion dreadnought. Bigger than some space stations he had visited. It was dark and angular, covered in patterns that seemed to shift and move, even in the still image. It had no visible weapons. No obvious propulsion systems. No features that made any sense. The recording ended there. What is that? Zorvax asked. His voice sounded strange even to his own ears. Unknown, Ambassador. The science officer was staring at her screens with wide eyes. The design does not match anything in our database. The materials. I cannot even identify the materials. And the power readings. She trailed off. What about the power readings? The structure is outputting more energy than a small star. Silence fell over the bridge. Zorvax could hear his own heartbeat in his ears. He had been doing this for 200 years. He had conquered species across 3 galaxies. He had never felt like this before. Ambassador, his communication officer said suddenly. We are receiving a transmission. From the planet. Put it through. Admiral Chen Wei appeared on the screen again. She looked exactly the same as before. Calm. Confident. Like she was the one in control. Ambassador Zorvax, she said. I see you have met our welcoming committee. I hope your soldiers are comfortable. They will be our guests for quite some time. What have you done with them? Zorvax demanded. They are alive. For now. What happens next depends entirely on you. You dare threaten the Dominion? Chen Wei laughed. It was a warm sound. Almost friendly. Somehow. That made it worse. Threat? No, Ambassador. This is not a threat. This is an explanation. You came to our world with 12,000 ships. You surrounded us. You demanded our surrender. You thought we were weak because we are young. You thought we were primitive because we have not spread across the galaxy. She leaned forward, and her eyes seemed to burn with cold fire. You were wrong. The transmission ended. Zorvax turned to his crew. They were all staring at him, waiting for orders, waiting for him to tell them what to do. But for the first time in his career, he did not know. Ambassador, his second officer said quietly, I have been reviewing our historical database. There are references, old references, from before the founding of the Dominion. References to what? To a species that the precursors warned about. They called them by many names, the enduring ones, the patient hunters, those who wait. He paused. The translations are old and incomplete, but the warnings are clear. If you find them, do not engage. Do not provoke them. Leave their space and never return. And you think these humans are this species? I think, Ambassador, that someone buried a warning in our database thousands of years ago. And I think we should have listened to it. Zorvax looked back at the little blue planet on the screen. It looked so peaceful, so harmless, so weak. But now he knew better. Somewhere beneath the oceans of Earth, ancient machines were waking up. Machines older than the Dominion. Machines that even the precursors had feared. And Zorvax had just made them angry. Send a message to the Dominion Council, he ordered. Tell them we may have made a mistake. But even as he gave the order, he knew it was too late. The trap had been sprung. Not around Earth, around his fleet. The 12,000 ships that had come to conquer were now prisoners in a cage of their own making. And somewhere on the planet below, humanity was watching, waiting, preparing. The hunt was about to begin, deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, in a facility that appeared on no map and existed in no record. Lights flickered on for the first time in 10,000 years. Ancient machines hummed with power. Screens displayed data in languages that predated human civilization. And in the center of it all, a countdown began. Admiral Chen Wei watched the countdown from her command center in Geneva. She had known this day would come eventually. Humanity had been preparing for it since they first found the facility in 2089. 60 years of study. 60 years of preparation. 60 years of hiding their true capabilities from a galaxy that would have destroyed them if it knew. But now the time for hiding was over. Status report, she said. All defense systems are online, her aide reported. The awakened are ready for deployment. Dimensional barriers are holding stable. And our guests? The alien soldiers are secure in the holding dimension. Time dilation is active. They are experiencing approximately 1 hour for every day that passes in our reality. Chenwei nodded. It was a merciful choice, really. The soldiers would barely notice their imprisonment, and they could be useful later as witnesses to what humanity was truly capable of. Begin Phase 2, she ordered. It is time to show our visitors why they should have stayed home. Above Earth, the Dominion fleet waited in nervous silence. They did not know what was coming. They would find out soon enough. 3 days had passed since the landing craft disappeared, and Ambassador Zorvax had not slept. He stood at the observation window of the Kethar's Pride, staring down at the blue planet that had become his obsession. Earth looked exactly the same as it had before, peaceful, quiet, innocent, but Zorvax knew better now. Ambassador. His second officer approached carefully, like a small animal approaching a predator. The captains of the other vessels are requesting a meeting. They want to know our next move. Tell them to maintain position, Zorvax said without turning around. We are still assessing the situation. With respect, Ambassador, the crews are becoming restless. There are rumors spreading through the fleet, stories about cursed worlds and ancient warnings. Morale is dropping. Zorvax finally turned to face his officer. Then find the source of these rumors and silence them. We are the Dominion of Kethar. We do not spread fear. We create it. But even as he spoke, Zorvax knew the words were hollow. He had seen the recordings from the landing craft. He had watched that massive structure rise from the ocean. He had felt the cold touch of something he did not understand. Send out scout ships, he ordered. Small teams, 3 vessels each. I want them to probe Earth's defenses from every angle. Find weaknesses, find answers. His second officer bowed and hurried away to carry out the command. Over the next several hours, 12 scout teams departed from the main fleet, 36 ships in total, each carrying the finest sensors and the bravest crews the Dominion had to offer. They spread out around the planet, approaching from different directions, at different altitudes, using different entry vectors. The first team reported strange readings as they passed through the upper atmosphere. Their navigation systems began showing impossible data. According to their instruments, they were simultaneously above Earth and inside a star, and floating in empty space between galaxies. Our sensors must be malfunctioning, the team leader reported. Requesting. The transmission cut off. The second team made it deeper into the atmosphere before something went wrong. Their communication officer began screaming about voices in his head, voices speaking languages that had no words, telling him secrets that his mind could not hold. He clawed at his own skull until his crewmates restrained him. Then the other crew members started hearing the voices too. Their final transmission was just screaming. The third team tried a different approach. They stayed high in the atmosphere, using long-range sensors to scan the surface below. For a few minutes, everything seemed fine. They detected cities and roads and signs of technology far more primitive than their own. Then they detected something else. Ambassador, the team leader reported, his voice shaking. We are reading structures beneath the planet's surface. Large structures, thousands of them. They are spread across every continent, hidden underground and under the oceans. And Ambassador, they are all connected. Connected to what? To everything. To each other. To the planet itself. It is like the whole world is one giant machine. Before Zorvax could respond, the team leader's voice changed. It became flat and emotionless. The network has noticed us, he said. It is curious. It wants to study us. It wants to understand why we came here. It wants static. Team after team went silent. Some vanished without a trace. Others managed to transmit fragments of information before their signals died. A few crews were found later, drifting in their ships, alive but changed. They could not remember their own names. They could not remember who they were. They just sat and stared at nothing, occasionally muttering in languages that had never existed. By the end of the first week, Zorvax had lost 400 ships without firing a single weapon. This is impossible, he said at the emergency meeting of his senior officers. We have the most advanced military technology in 3 galaxies. How can a primitive species do this to us? Perhaps, his science officer said carefully. They are not as primitive as we believed. Explain, The science officer pulled up data on the main display. I have been analyzing the fragments of information our scouts transmitted before they went silent. The energy patterns we are detecting do not match any known technology. They are not human in origin. They are not Dominion. They are not from any species in our database. Then where do they come from? I believe they predate our civilization. All our civilizations. By a significant margin. Zorvax stared at the data on the screen. The patterns were beautiful in a terrible way. They spiraled and twisted in shapes that seemed to have more dimensions than his eyes could process. Precursor technology. He breathed. More than that, Ambassador. The precursors disappeared over 50,000 years ago. According to these readings, the technology on Earth is at least twice that old. This is from before the precursors, from the civilization that came before them. The room fell silent. Every species in the galaxy knew the stories about the precursors, the ancient race that had seeded the stars with life, before vanishing without explanation. But the idea that there had been something before the precursors, something even older, even more powerful. The humans found it, Zorvax said slowly. They found ancient technology and learned to use it. Not just use it, Ambassador. Improve it. The readings we are detecting show modifications to the base patterns. Changes that make the technology more efficient, more powerful, more adaptive. The humans have not just been using this technology. They have been advancing it. For how long? The science officer checked her data. Based on the level of integration we are seeing, at least a century. Possibly longer. A century. For 100 years, humanity had been sitting on technology that could challenge the entire Dominion, and they had told no one. They had hidden it. They had pretended to be weak and primitive and harmless. Why? The answer came to Zorvax like a cold wind. Because they were waiting. Waiting to see who would come for them. Waiting to see who their enemies would be. And now they knew. Ambassador. His communication officer interrupted his thoughts. We are receiving another transmission from the planet. Put it through. The screen flickered to life. But it was not Admiral Chen Wei this time. It was a man. Older, with white hair and pale skin and eyes that seemed to see too much. Good evening, Ambassador Zorvax, the man said. His voice was soft and gentle, like a teacher addressing a slow student. My name is Dr. Marcus Webb. I am the director of the facility you have been trying to probe. I thought it was time we had a proper conversation. You are the one behind all this, Zorvax said. The disappearing ships, the malfunctions, the madness. Madness is such a strong word. We prefer to call it enlightenment. Your crews have been given a gift, Ambassador. They have seen the truth of the universe. It is not our fault that their minds were too small to contain it. Zorvax felt anger rising in his chest. You think this is a game? You think you can play with the Dominion and suffer no consequences? Dr. Webb smiled. It was not a cruel smile. It was worse than that. It was the smile of someone who knew something you did not. Ambassador, let me tell you a story. 150,000 years ago, give or take a few millennia, a species arose on this planet. They called themselves humans. Though they had many names in many languages, they were not the first intelligent species on Earth, but they were the most stubborn. They survived ice ages that killed most other large animals. They survived volcanic eruptions that blocked out the sun. They survived their own destructive nature. Again, and again, and again. He paused, his eyes distant. 60,000 years ago, they found something. A structure buried deep beneath what is now the Atlantic Ocean. It had been placed there by beings so ancient that even the precursors knew them only as legends. The structure was a gift and a test. It contained knowledge, technology, power beyond imagination. But it also contained a choice. What choice? Zorvax asked, despite himself. The choice that every species must make when they discover such power. Use it to conquer, or use it to protect. The species that built the structure had seen countless civilizations rise and fall. They had watched empires burn themselves to ash in the pursuit of dominance. They wanted to find a species that would be different. A species that would have the power to rule the galaxy but would choose not to. And you expect me to believe that humans made such a choice? I expect you to believe nothing, Ambassador. I am merely telling you what happened. Humanity found the structure. They activated it. They learned its secrets. And they decided to wait, to watch, to see what the galaxy would become before revealing themselves. Dr. Webb's expression hardened. We watched the precursors rise and fall. We watched the Dominion grow from a single world to a coalition of conquerors. We watched you enslave hundreds of species, destroy countless civilizations, spread suffering across 3 galaxies, and we did nothing. We waited, because we needed to know if there was any hope for the galaxy, any chance that the strong would learn to protect the weak instead of exploit them. And what did you decide? We decided that we were done waiting. When your fleet appeared in our solar system, we knew that the galaxy would never change on its own. Someone would have to change it. Someone would have to show the empires of the stars that there are consequences for cruelty. Dr. Webb leaned forward, and his gentle expression disappeared entirely. You came here to enslave us, Ambassador. You came here to take our world and our people and add us to your collection of conquered species. You expected us to be weak, to be afraid, to surrender. He smiled again, and this time there was nothing gentle about it. We are not weak, we are not afraid, and we will never surrender. Not to you, not to anyone. The transmission ended. Zorvax stood in silence, his mind racing. Everything he had believed about this mission was wrong. Everything the Dominion had assumed about humanity was wrong. They were not prey, they were not victims, they were hunters. And they had been hunting for a very, very long time. Ambassador. His second officer's voice was barely a whisper. What do we do? Before Zorvax could answer, every light on the bridge flickered. For a moment, everything went dark. Then the emergency lighting activated, casting the room in red shadows. What is happening? Zorvax demanded. Unknown, Ambassador. We are experiencing a ship-wide power fluctuation. All systems are affected. Then the screaming started. It came from everywhere at once. From the corridors outside the bridge, from the lower decks, from the engineering section. It was the sound of thousands of voices crying out in terror. Security teams to all sections, Zorvax ordered. Find out what is happening. But the security teams never reported in. The screaming continued for several minutes, then stopped abruptly. The silence that followed was somehow worse. Ambassador. The communication officer's voice was shaking. I am receiving reports from other ships. They are all experiencing the same thing. Power fluctuations, screaming. And then, silence. Zorvax ran to the nearest communication panel and opened a channel to the engineering section. Chief Engineer Thrall, report your status. There was no response. Chief Engineer Thrall, respond. Static. And then a voice that did not belong to Chief Engineer Thrall. He cannot hear you, Ambassador. The voice was human, female, calm. None of them can hear you. They are sleeping now, dreaming, learning. Who are you? How did you get on my ship? I am Captain Elena Vasquez of Earth's Special Operations Division, and I did not get on your ship, Ambassador. I was already here. I have been here since before your fleet arrived. Impossible. Our sensors would have detected. Your sensors see what we allow them to see. Your shields stop what we allow them to stop. Your weapons fire where we allow them to fire. You have been in our web since the moment you entered our solar system. You just did not know it. Zorvax felt the blood drain from his face. What do you want? I want to deliver a message. A message that I need you to understand completely. Can you do that, Ambassador? Can you listen? Speak. The galaxy has operated on one principle for as long as anyone can remember. The strong take from the weak. The Dominion has built an empire on this principle. You have conquered, you have enslaved, you have destroyed, and you have never faced any real consequences. Until now, the lights on the bridge flickered again. When they stabilized, words had appeared on every screen. Words in the Dominion's own language, burning bright against the dark background. You were warned. We gave you a chance, Captain Vasquez continued. We gave you a chance to turn your fleet around and leave. We gave you a chance to prove that the galaxy could be better than we feared. You chose to attack instead. You chose to try to enslave us. And now you will face the consequences of that choice. What consequences? What are you going to do? Nothing you do not deserve, Ambassador. Nothing that was not coming eventually. The galaxy is going to change. And you are going to be the beginning. The transmission ended. Zorvax looked around his bridge. His officers stared back at him, their faces pale with fear. Beyond the bridge, the corridors were silent. The thousands of crew members who had been screaming were now quiet, sleeping, the human had said, dreaming, learning, What were they learning? What was happening to his people? Zorvax walked to the main screen and looked down at Earth once more. The little blue planet hung in space, peaceful and beautiful and terrible. They had surrounded Earth with fleets, 12,000 ships, the most powerful armada the Dominion had ever assembled. They had come to conquer, to enslave, to destroy. But now Zorvax understood the truth. They had not surrounded Earth. Earth had surrounded them, and the hunt was just beginning. In the depths of the Kethar's pride, Captain Elena Vasquez smiled as she made her way through the sleeping crew members. They lay where they had fallen, their bodies relaxed, their faces peaceful. They were not dead. Death would have been too easy, too quick. They were being educated. The nanomachines in the ship's atmosphere were showing them things about the galaxy they served, things about the species they had conquered, things about the suffering they had caused. They would wake up changed. Some of them would be broken by what they had learned. Others would be transformed, but none of them would ever be the same. Vasquez reached the engineering section and found what she was looking for. The ship's central data core. She placed her hand on the access panel, and the precursor technology in her blood interfaced with the alien systems. Within seconds, she had access to everything. Every secret the Dominion had ever hidden, every atrocity they had ever committed, every world they had ever destroyed. She downloaded it all. Then she sent a single message back to Earth. Phase 2 complete. Recommend proceeding to Phase 3. Admiral Chenwei's response came immediately. Acknowledged. Let the hunt begin. Somewhere in the distance, Vasquez heard Ambassador Zorvax shouting orders that no one would follow. She almost felt sorry for him. Almost. But then she remembered the 400 civilizations the Dominion had destroyed, the billions of lives they had ended, the countless species they had erased from existence. No, she did not feel sorry for him at all. She felt hungry. The hunt was on. Day 5 of the blockade, and the Dominion fleet was dying. Not from weapons fire, not from battle damage. The ships were simply disappearing. One by one, they vanished from sensors without warning. No explosions, no debris, no distress signals. They were there one moment and gone the next. As if the universe itself had decided to erase them. Ambassador Zorvax had stopped sleeping entirely. He stood on the bridge of the Kethar's pride, watching the tactical display as another cluster of ships winked out of existence. That made 700 vessels lost in the past day alone. 700 ships, over 100,000 crew members, gone without a trace. Ambassador. His second officer approached, looking as exhausted as Zorvax felt. We have lost contact with the outer perimeter. The entire defensive ring is gone. How? How can they destroy ships without leaving any evidence? I do not believe they are being destroyed, Ambassador. Based on the patterns we are seeing, I believe they are being taken. Taken where? Unknown. But the energy signatures we detect at the moment of each disappearance are consistent with dimensional displacement. The humans appear to be moving our ships to another location, perhaps another dimension entirely. Zorvax slammed his fist against the command console. This is impossible. The technology required for dimensional manipulation. Even the precursors could not achieve such things. The humans have apparently achieved many things the precursors could not. The words hung in the air. Zorvax had always believed the precursors were the most advanced civilization in the history of the galaxy. Every species in the Dominion had been raised on stories of their power, their wisdom, their mysterious disappearance, to learn that there was something older, something greater, something that humanity now controlled. It changed everything. Ambassador. The communication officer spoke hesitantly. We are receiving reports from the remaining ships. The crews are. They are seeing things. What kind of things? Shadows. Figures moving through the corridors that do not appear on sensors. Some crew members report hearing voices whispering to them in the dark. Others say they have seen themselves. Copies, duplicates, walking the halls and watching them with empty eyes. Zorvax felt a chill run down his spine. It is psychological warfare. The humans are trying to break our morale. Perhaps. But Ambassador, the reports are consistent across hundreds of ships, and in some cases, the things the crews are seeing have been recorded by security cameras. The tactical display flickered, and for a moment, Zorvax could have sworn he saw something in the static. A face, human, watching him with dark eyes that seemed to contain infinite depths. Then the display stabilized, and the face was gone. Show me the security footage, Zorvax ordered. From the ships that reported sightings, the main screen switched to a grid of security feeds from across the fleet. At first, everything looked normal. Corridors filled with nervous crew members, going about their duties, engineering sections humming with activity, medical bays treating soldiers who had woken up from the strange sleep. Then Zorvax saw it. In the corner of one feed, a shadow moved. It was shaped like a human, but it was not quite right. The proportions were off. The movements were too smooth, too fluid, like a puppet being controlled by invisible strings. It walked through a wall as if the solid metal was not there. In another feed, a crew member turned a corner and came face to face with himself, an exact duplicate, standing perfectly still, staring at him with eyes that did not blink. The original screamed and ran. The duplicate watched him go, then smiled and faded into nothing. In a third feed, something moved through the engine room. Something that left behind no shadow and made no sound. The engineers did not notice it at first, but one by one, they stopped what they were doing and turned to stare at empty air. Their expressions were blank, their eyes were glassy, and then, in perfect unison, they all spoke a single word, a word in a language that Zorvax did not recognize, a word that his translator could not process, a word that somehow, despite being completely foreign, filled him with a terror so profound that he could not breathe. "What is happening to my fleet?" he whispered. "They are hunting us, Ambassador." The voice came from behind him, and Zorvax spun around to find Captain Elena Vasquez standing on his bridge. She had not been there a second ago. There had been no sound of approach, no alarm, no warning. She just appeared. "How did you get in here?" Zorvax demanded. "Guards. Security." No one responded. Zorvax looked around and realized with horror that his bridge crew was frozen in place. Not dead, he could see them breathing, but they were not moving. Their eyes stared straight ahead, seeing nothing. "They cannot help you," Vasquez said. She walked toward him slowly, casually, as if she had all the time in the universe. "No one can help you now, Ambassador. You are in our world, our space, our rules. What do you want?" "I already told you. I want to deliver a message, but I do not think you were listening before. So I'm going to show you instead." She reached out and touched his forehead. Her fingers were cold as ice, and suddenly Zorvax was somewhere else. He was standing on a planet he did not recognize. The sky was red, and the ground was covered with ash. In the distance, he could see the ruins of a great city. Its towers had fallen, its streets were empty, its people were gone. "This is Verath Prime," Vasquez's voice said, though he could not see her. "The Dominion conquered it 300 years ago. The Verathi people refused to surrender, so you destroyed them. All of them. 70 billion souls. Erased from existence." The scene shifted. Now Zorvax was underwater, surrounded by the remains of a civilization that had never seen the sun. Crystal buildings lay shattered on the ocean floor. Bodies floated in the current, their faces frozen in expressions of terror. This is the home world of the Deepborn. They lived beneath the seas of their world for 1,000,000 years. They had art and music and stories that had been passed down for 10,000 generations. The Dominion poisoned their oceans because it was easier than finding another source of minerals. The entire species died within a week. Again, the scene changed. Zorvax found himself standing in a field of bones. Millions of them, billions. They stretched from horizon to horizon, a landscape of death that had no end. "And this," Vasquez said, finally appearing beside him, "is what the Dominion leaves behind. You have built your empire on a foundation of corpses, Ambassador. You have murdered your way across 3 galaxies, and you have never faced any consequences. Until now." Zorvax fell to his knees. The weight of what he was seeing was too much. He had known, of course. He had always known what the Dominion did, but seeing it like this, seeing the full scope of the destruction. "Why are you showing me this?" he asked. His voice was broken. "Because I need you to understand why what happens next is necessary. The galaxy will not change on its own. The strong will always prey on the weak unless someone stops them. Humanity has the power to stop them, and we have decided to use it. You are going to destroy the Dominion." "No. Destruction is what the Dominion does. We are going to do something much worse. We are going to change it." Vasquez knelt beside him, her eyes level with his. "Every ship in your fleet has been infiltrated. Every crew member has been marked. When this is over, they will return to the Dominion. They will resume their lives, their positions, their duties. But they will be different. They will remember what we have shown them. They will carry the weight of the Dominion's crimes in their hearts. And slowly, one by one, they will begin to question. They will begin to resist. They will begin to change. You are going to turn my people against themselves. We are going to give your people a choice, a real choice, for the first time in their lives. They can continue to serve an empire built on murder and slavery, or they can choose a different path. Some will resist, some will cling to their old ways, but enough will choose differently. Enough will remember what they learned here. She stood up and looked down at him with something that might have been pity. The Dominion is not going to fall today, Ambassador. It is going to rot from within. And when it finally collapses, it will not be because we destroyed it. It will be because its own people decided they deserved better. The vision ended. Zorvax found himself back on his bridge, surrounded by his still frozen crew. Vasquez was gone. Had she ever really been there? Or had the whole thing been some kind of illusion? It did not matter. The message had been delivered. The lights flickered, and his crew began to move again. They looked confused, disoriented, as if waking from a deep sleep. Ambassador? His second officer blinked. What? What happened? I know, Zorvax said. I felt it too. He walked to the command console and looked at the tactical display. The disappearances had stopped, at least for now. But the fleet that remained was barely half of what they had started with. Thousands of ships, millions of crew members, either gone completely or changed in ways he did not want to think about. Ambassador. The communication officer's voice was strange. We are receiving a transmission from the planet. Put it through. Admiral Chenwei appeared on the screen once more. But this time, she was not alone. Behind her stood dozens of humans, all of them wearing the same dark uniforms, all of them looking at the screen with the same calm confidence. Ambassador Zorvax, Chenwei said. I hope Captain Vasquez's visit was educational. You cannot win, Zorvax said. The words felt hollow even as he spoke them. Even if you destroy my entire fleet, the Dominion will send more. They will send everything they have. They will burn your world to ash. They are welcome to try. Chenwei smiled. But I do not think they will. You see, Ambassador, we have been very careful about this invasion. We have allowed just enough of your ships to escape our attention. Just enough to carry messages back to the Dominion Council. And what those messages will say, well, that is up to you. What do you mean? I am offering you a choice. The same choice we offer all our enemies. You can leave now, with whatever ships you have remaining, and tell the Dominion that Earth is not to be touched. You can tell them what you have seen here. You can warn them that any future attacks will be met with consequences they cannot imagine. And if I refuse? Chenwei's smile faded. Then we will stop playing with you. Everything you have experienced so far has been gentle. A demonstration. A warning. If you force us to escalate, Ambassador, there will be nothing gentle about what comes next. Behind her, the humans shifted. Their eyes seemed to glow in the low light of the command center. Zorvax could not tell if it was a trick of the light or something else entirely. What are you? He asked. What have you become? We are what the galaxy made us, Chenwei answered. We are the product of a universe that rewards violence and punishes mercy. We tried to hide from that truth. We tried to be better, but you showed us that the galaxy does not reward kindness. It exploits it. She leaned forward, and her expression hardened. So we stopped being kind. We stopped hiding. We became what we needed to be to survive. And now, Ambassador, we have become something else entirely. Something that the galaxy has never seen before. Something that even the precursors feared. And what is that? We are the consequence, Ambassador. We are the price that conquerors pay. We are the end of empires and the beginning of something new. She paused. We are humanity, and we are done hiding. The transmission ended. Zorvax stood in silence for a long moment. Around him, his crew waited for orders. He could feel their fear, their uncertainty, their desperate hope that he would tell them what to do. But for the first time in his career, he did not know. He thought about the visions Vasquez had shown him. The dead worlds. The billions of lives ended. The empire built on suffering and bones. He had always known what the Dominion was. He had always known what they did. He had just never let himself care. "Ambassador?" His second officer's voice was quiet. "What are your orders?" Zorvax looked at the tactical display, at the ships that remained, at the planet hanging in space, peaceful and beautiful and terrible. He thought about honor. He thought about duty. He thought about all the things he had told himself over 200 years of conquest. And then he thought about the look in Chen Wei's eyes, the absolute certainty, the total lack of fear. She was not bluffing. Whatever humanity had become, whatever power they had found, it was real. And if he pushed them further, "Set course for the edge of the solar system," Zorvax ordered. His voice sounded hollow to his own ears. "Signal the remaining fleet to follow." "Ambassador?" His second officer stared at him in shock. "You are ordering a retreat?" "I am ordering a strategic withdrawal. We need to report to the Dominion Council. They need to know what we have found here." "And Earth? The humans?" Zorvax looked at the little blue planet one last time. He thought about the message Chen Wei had given him, the warning he was supposed to deliver. "Earth," he said slowly, "is no longer our concern. Let someone else try their luck. I have seen enough." The fleet began to move. Slowly at first, then faster. The surviving ships of the Dominion Armada turned away from Earth and headed for the edge of the solar system. Behind them, the planet hung in space. Quiet, peaceful, waiting, and somewhere in the depths of that world, humanity watched them go. "Admiral," one of Chen Wei's aides approached her as the transmission ended. "They are retreating. All remaining ships are moving toward the system boundary. As expected, should we let them go?" Chen Wei considered the question. Part of her wanted to finish it, to destroy every ship that had come to threaten her world, to send a message so loud and so clear that no one would ever dare to threaten Earth again. But that was not the plan. That had never been the plan. "Let them go," she said. "They will deliver our message better than any weapon could. Fear spreads faster than light, and the story they tell will reach every corner of the galaxy." She turned to face her command center. The screens showed images from across the solar system. Ships retreating, sensors tracking, humanity watching. "This is not the end," she said. "This is the beginning. The Dominion will hear what happened here. Other empires will hear. And they will all have to decide what to do about it. You think they will come for us?" Chen Wei smiled. It was not a kind smile. "I hope they do. We have been waiting a very long time for this. 100,000 years of hiding. 100,000 years of watching the galaxy tear itself apart. It is time for humanity to step out of the shadows." She looked up at the stars visible through the ceiling window. So many lights. So many worlds. So many empires built on blood and suffering. "We are going to change everything," she said. "One way or another, the hunt was over. For now. But the real battle was just beginning." Ambassador Zorvax had made his decision. But not every captain in the fleet agreed with it. Supreme Commander Thurl stood on the bridge of his dreadnought, the Conqueror's Wrath, and watched the other ships begin their retreat. His 4 eyes burned with rage. 200 years of service to the Dominion, 40 conquered worlds added to the empire under his command. And now, a mere primitive species had made fools of them all. "I will not run," he said. His voice was quiet, but every officer on the bridge heard him. "I did not rise to Supreme Commander by fleeing from prey. Commander," his tactical officer spoke carefully, "Ambassador Zorvax has ordered." Ambassador Zorvax is a diplomat, not a warrior. He does not understand victory. He does not understand what must be done to preserve our honor. Thurl turned to face his bridge crew. They were loyal soldiers. Every one of them. They had followed him through dozens of campaigns, watched him break resistant worlds, seen him accept the surrender of kings and generals who thought themselves unbeatable. "We have 3,000 ships still capable of combat," Thurl said. 3,000 ships armed with weapons that have destroyed civilizations. And Zorvax wants us to run from a single planet. "The planet has technology we do not understand," his science officer said. "The losses we have suffered were caused by tricks and shadows. Psychological warfare. The humans have no real weapons, no real power. They have simply found clever ways to make us afraid." Thurl slammed his fist on the command console. "I am not afraid, and I will prove that Earth can be conquered, just like every other world." He opened a communication channel to the ships that had been under his direct command. 200 vessels, crewed by soldiers who had served with him for decades. Attention all ships of Battle Group Theral. This is your commander. We are not retreating. We are going to show these humans what the Dominion truly means. We are going to burn their planet and end this farce. Any ship that wishes to join me, hold position. Any ship that would rather flee with the ambassador is free to go. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, one by one, ships began to drop out of the retreating formation. Not just from his battle group, but from across the fleet. Captains who shared his anger. Warriors who refused to accept defeat. Within minutes, over 500 ships had gathered around the Conqueror's wrath. Excellent, Theral said. Now let us show these humans what real power looks like. Admiral Chen Wei watched the situation develop from her command center beneath the Pacific Ocean. The holographic display showed the Dominion fleet splitting in two, half continuing their retreat, half gathering for an attack. It seems not everyone got the message, Captain Vasquez observed. There are always those who choose pride over survival, Chen Wei replied. They will learn, or they will not. Either way, the result will be the same. Should we deploy the primary systems? Chen Wei considered the question. The primary systems were humanity's ultimate weapons. Technology so advanced that even the precursors had never developed anything like it. They had been designed for situations exactly like this one overwhelming force, impossible odds, enemies who could not be reasoned with. But using them would change things. Once the galaxy saw what humanity was truly capable of, there would be no going back. No more hiding. No more pretending to be less than they were. Yes, Chen Wei said finally. Activate the awakened. Let us show them what happens to those who do not listen. Deep beneath the Earth's surface, in chambers that had been carved by forces older than human civilization, machines began to wake. They were called the Awakened. Though that was not their original name. Humanity had found them in the same structure that had given them everything else, the ancient gift from the beings who came before. They were weapons, in a sense, but they were also something more. They were guardians. Protectors, the last defense of a species that had learned to value its existence above all else. They rose from the depths, massive structures of dark metal and impossible geometry, each one larger than the largest Dominion dreadnought. They emerged from the oceans and from hidden installations on the moon and from places in the solar system that no sensor had ever detected, and they were hungry. Supreme Commander Theral watched the tactical display as the contacts appeared. Dozens of them, then hundreds, each one reading as larger and more powerful than anything in his fleet. What are those? He demanded. Unknown vessels, Commander. They are not in our database. Their power signatures are. Commander. Their power signatures are impossible. Each one is outputting more energy than our entire fleet combined. Impossible. Nothing is that powerful. The readings are consistent across all sensors, Commander. These vessels are real. Theral stared at the display. The unknown ships were moving to surround his attack force, cutting off any avenue of escape. They moved with a grace that should have been impossible for objects their size, flowing through space like predators closing in on prey. All ships, open fire, Theral ordered. Full barrage. Every weapon we have. The attack fleet unleashed everything. Plasma cannons, antimatter torpedoes, kinetic accelerators, weapons that had shattered planets and broken civilizations. The barrage lit up space with a brilliance that could have been seen from Earth with the naked eye. It did not matter. The unknown ships did not even try to dodge. They simply let the weapons hit them. And the weapons stopped. They did not explode. They did not damage the strange hulls. They simply ceased to exist, absorbed into the dark metal like rain into an ocean. Commander, the tactical officer's voice was shaking. Our weapons have no effect. None at all. That is impossible. Those are antimatter warheads. They should vaporize anything they touch. They are not vaporizing these ships, Commander. They are not doing anything. Before Theral could respond, the unknown ships began to return fire, except they did not use weapons. Not in any sense that Theral understood. They did not fire projectiles or energy beams or missiles. They simply reached out. And the ships they reached for began to change. The first vessel to be touched was a destroyer on the outer edge of the formation. One moment it was firing its weapons, engines at full power, crew fighting to survive. The next moment, it was somewhere else. The ship was still visible on sensors, but it was no longer in the same space. It existed in a pocket of distorted reality. a bubble where the normal laws of physics did not apply. Inside that bubble, time moved differently. Seconds passed for the rest of the universe, but hours passed for the trapped ship, then days, then years. When the bubble finally collapsed, the ship that emerged was ancient. Its hull was covered in centuries of dust. Its systems had failed long ago. Its crew had lived out their entire lives in those few seconds, growing old and dying in a prison they could never escape. What? Thurl could not finish the sentence. What he had just witnessed was beyond anything he had imagined possible. Commander, the science officer was weeping. They are doing it to other ships. They are trapping them in time distortions. Our people are aging to death in moments. Ship after ship fell victim to the temporal weapons. Destroyers and cruisers and battleships, trapped in bubbles of accelerated time, their crews living and dying in the space of a heartbeat. Some ships tried to flee, but the unknown vessels were everywhere. There was no escape. Commander, what do we do? Thurl looked at the tactical display. Half his fleet was already gone. Not destroyed but removed from existence in ways that made destruction seem merciful. The remaining ships were being surrounded, cut off, trapped. He could not think. He could not plan. Everything he knew about warfare was useless against an enemy like this. Commander, we are receiving a transmission from one of the unknown vessels. Put it through. The screen flickered, and a human appeared. She was young, with dark hair and darker eyes, and she wore a uniform that seemed to absorb the light around it. Supreme Commander Thurl, she said. Her voice was calm and quiet. My name is Lieutenant Sarah Chen. I am the pilot of the awakened vessel Nemesis. You were given a chance to leave. You were warned what would happen if you refused. And now you are facing the consequences of your choice. What are you? Thurl demanded. What is this technology? Where did it come from? The technology is old. Older than your dominion. Older than the precursors. It was created by beings who understood the universe in ways that your species cannot imagine. They left it behind as a gift for those who would come after them. Humanity found that gift, and we have spent a very long time learning to use it. You cannot do this. The Dominion will not allow. The Dominion, Lieutenant Chen interrupted, is not here. You are here. Your ships are here. Your soldiers are here. And right now, none of them exist in the same reality as the rest of the universe. She gestured, and the main display changed. It showed the space around Thurl's fleet. But the space was wrong. It was twisted, curved, folded in on itself like a piece of paper that had been crumpled and then partially smoothed out. His ships were trapped in that twisted space, unable to move in any direction that made sense. We have locked your fleet in a dimensional pocket, Lieutenant Chen explained. Time moves differently here. Space does not behave the way you expect it to. Your engines will not function. Your weapons will not fire. Your communications will not reach anyone outside this bubble. You cannot hold us forever. We do not need to hold you forever. We only need to hold you long enough. Long enough for what? Lieutenant Chen smiled. It was not a cruel smile, but it was not kind either. It was the smile of someone who knew something you did not. Long enough for you to understand. The transmission ended. And then, for Supreme Commander Thurl and every soldier under his command, the education began. They saw things that no member of the Dominion had ever seen before. The true history of the galaxy, stretching back millions of years. The rise and fall of civilizations that had come before. The crimes of the Dominion, shown in vivid detail. Every death and every act of cruelty laid bare. They saw the species that the Dominion had destroyed, not as statistics or historical records, but as living beings, mothers and fathers and children, artists and scientists and dreamers, people who had loved and hoped and feared, all reduced to ash and memory by an empire that had never considered them worth saving. They saw what the Dominion had become, a machine that existed only to consume, a civilization that had forgotten why it expanded, that conquered simply because conquest was what it did, a monument to cruelty built on a foundation of bones. And they saw what humanity had been, what it still was, underneath the power and the technology. A species that had almost destroyed itself a dozen times, a species that had looked into the abyss and had somehow chosen to turn back. A species that had found ancient power and had spent a century asking itself the hardest question of all. What do we do with it? The visions lasted for what felt like years. though only hours passed in the outside world. When they ended, the soldiers of the Dominion were changed. Some were broken, their minds unable to process what they had witnessed. Others were transformed, the certainties of their lives stripped away, replaced by doubt and questions they had never thought to ask. And Supreme Commander Therill knelt on the floor of his bridge, surrounded by officers who could not meet his eyes. He had seen everything. The worlds he had conquered, the species he had destroyed, the suffering he had caused in the name of an empire that had never deserved his loyalty. "Why?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Why show us this? Why not simply destroy us?" Lieutenant Chen appeared on the screen once more. "Because destruction is easy. It is what the Dominion does. We wanted to show you another way. There is no other way. Not for me. I have done too much. Killed too many. Perhaps. But your soldiers have not. Your crews have not. Some of them can still choose a different path. Some of them can still be something better than what the Dominion made them." She paused, and her expression softened slightly. "You asked what we are, Commander. We are the consequence. We are what happens when the strong finally face judgment for their crimes, and we are offering you a choice that the Dominion has never offered anyone else." "What choice?" "You can return to the Dominion. Tell them what happened here. Tell them what you saw. Warn them that if they ever threaten Earth again, what happened to your fleet will happen to their entire civilization. Or what? Or you can stay. Help us. Use what you have learned to change the galaxy instead of conquer it. It will not erase what you have done, but it might help balance the scales." Eventually, Therill looked around at his bridge crew. They were watching him, waiting to see what he would decide. He had led them into this disaster. They would follow whatever path he chose now. He thought about everything he had seen. The dead worlds, the suffering, the endless cycle of violence that the Dominion had perpetuated for thousands of years. And he thought about the humans, a species that had found ultimate power and had not used it to conquer. A species that offered mercy to enemies who deserved none. Maybe there was another way. Maybe it was not too late. "I will return to the Dominion," he said finally. "I will tell them what happened here. I will warn them." Lieutenant Chen nodded. "And after that?" "After that," Therill took a deep breath. "After that I will try to be something better than what I was. I do not know if I can succeed, but I will try. That is all anyone can ask." The dimensional pocket began to collapse. The twisted space unfolded itself, and the surviving ships of Therill's attack force found themselves back in normal space. Their weapons worked again, their engines functioned. They were free, and in front of them, Earth hung in space. Still peaceful, still beautiful, still utterly beyond their ability to threaten. "Set course for the system boundary," Therill ordered. "We are going home." Admiral Chen Wei watched the last of the Dominion ships disappear from her sensors. The Battle of Earth's Shadow was over. Humanity had faced the largest invasion force ever assembled, and had not lost a single human life. But the real work was just beginning. "Contact all our assets in the galaxy," she ordered. "It is time to stop hiding. It is time to show the universe what we have become." Around her, displays flickered to life. Images from across 3 galaxies. Human faces in 1,000 locations. Watching, waiting, ready to step out of the shadows. They had been preparing for this moment for a century. Now the moment had finally arrived. The galaxy was about to change. And humanity was going to change it, one way or another. 6 months had passed since the Battle of Earth's Shadow. 6 months since the greatest military disaster in Dominion history. 6 months since Ambassador Zorvax and Supreme Commander Therill had returned to the galactic capital with stories that no one wanted to believe. But everyone believed them now. Zorvax stood before the High Council of the Dominion, a gathering of the 12 most powerful species in 3 galaxies. They sat in their elevated thrones, looking down at him with expressions that ranged from disbelief to terror. He had already given his report. He had already told them everything, and now they were trying to decide what to do about it. 12,000 ships, the High Chancellor said. His voice echoed through the vast chamber. "We sent 12,000 ships to conquer a single primitive world. And how many returned? 3,000, High Chancellor, and of those many suffered significant damage or crew losses. Losses to what? Their weapons could not have been that powerful. Our sensors showed." "Your sensors?" Zorvax interrupted. showed what the humans wanted them to show. They have technology that can manipulate our sensors, our shields, our weapons. They can trap ships in distorted space where time moves at different speeds. They can make soldiers see things that are not there, learn things they never wanted to know. They are not what we thought they were. The council chamber fell silent. The High Chancellor leaned forward, his ancient eyes studying Zorvax with a mixture of suspicion and fear. And you expect us to believe that this primitive species, this young race that barely left its own star system, somehow possesses technology that surpasses even the precursors? I expect nothing, High Chancellor. I only report what I witnessed. What we all witnessed. The humans found something on their world. Something ancient, something powerful, and they have spent generations learning to use it. Then we will send more ships. We will send everything we have. We already tried that. All eyes turned to the doorway, where Supreme Commander Therill had just entered. He looked different than he had 6 months ago. Older, more tired. There were lines on his face that had not been there before, and his eyes held shadows that spoke of things better left unseen. Commander Therill, the High Chancellor said, you were ordered to remain in your quarters until I was ordered to remain silent while you decided how to handle this disaster. But I will not remain silent any longer. Therill walked forward until he stood beside Zorvax. 3 weeks ago, the Dominion Council sent another fleet to Earth, 50,000 ships, the largest armada in our history. The council members exchanged glances. Several of them shifted uncomfortably in their seats. It never arrived, Therill continued. Every ship vanished in transit, disappeared mid-jump, between one star and the next. We thought it was a malfunction. We thought it was a coincidence. We were wrong. He gestured, and the chamber's holographic display activated. It showed images of Dominion warships not destroyed, but drifting in space. Empty. Silent. Dead. These ships reappeared above our homeworlds yesterday. All 50,000 of them. Not one crew member was found alive, but they left us a message. The display shifted to show close-up images of the empty ships. Every surface was covered in words. The same words, repeated in every language known to the Dominion. Carved into metal, burned into walls, written in the blood of soldiers who were no longer there. We gave you a chance. The humans did this? One of the council members asked. His voice was barely a whisper. They did not just do this, Therill said. They did it without leaving Earth. They destroyed 50,000 ships, killed or captured 500,000 soldiers, and left our entire fleet drifting as a warning, all without moving a single one of their vessels from their home system. That is impossible. I have been saying that word a lot lately. I am starting to think it does not mean what we thought it meant. The High Chancellor rose from his throne. He was ancient, even by the standards of his long-lived species. He had ruled the Dominion for 3,000 years. He had seen empires rise and fall. He had never looked as afraid as he did now. What do they want? He asked. What do the humans demand? Zorvax stepped forward. They demand nothing, High Chancellor. They want nothing from us. They simply want us to leave them alone. And they want the galaxy to know what happens to those who refuse. They cannot expect us to simply accept this, to accept that we have been defeated by a single world. They do not care what we accept. They have made their position clear. Earth is not to be touched. Any species that threatens them will face consequences. And if we refuse, if we continue to, then they will come for us. Therill's voice was flat. Not to destroy us. Destruction would be easy. They will do what they did to my soldiers. They will show us the truth. They will make us see what we have become. And when they are done, we will not be the same. He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was quieter. I was changed by what I saw, High Chancellor. Many of my soldiers were changed. Some of them have already left the Dominion. Others have begun questioning orders they would have followed without hesitation 6 months ago. The humans are not trying to destroy our empire. They are trying to make it destroy itself. The council chamber erupted in arguments. Council members shouted at each other, some demanding retaliation, others urging caution. The chaos continued for several minutes before the High Chancellor raised his hand for silence. Enough. His voice cut through the noise like a blade. It does not matter what we want. It does not matter what our pride demands. The humans have demonstrated power that we cannot match. We must adapt to this new reality. You suggest we surrender? One of the council members demanded. I suggest we survive. The humans have not asked for territory. They have not demanded tribute. They have simply asked to be left alone. Perhaps for now, that is a request we should honor. The decision was made. The Dominion would not attack Earth again. They would not threaten humanity. They would wait and watch and hope that the strange species from the small blue world would be content to remain in their corner of the galaxy. But they were wrong about that too. 3 months later, a message arrived from Earth. It was broadcast on every frequency, in every language, to every inhabited world, in 3 galaxies. The voice that spoke belonged to Admiral Chen Wei. "People of the galaxy," she said, "my name is Chen Wei. I speak to you today on behalf of the United Earth government and the human species. You have heard stories about what happened when the Dominion came to our world. Some of you believe those stories. Some of you think they are exaggerations or lies. It does not matter. What matters is what comes next. For 100,000 years, we have watched the galaxy. We have seen empires rise and fall. We have seen species conquer and enslave each other. We have seen cruelty become normal and mercy become weakness. We have watched, and we have waited, and we have wondered if things would ever change. They did not change. The strong continued to prey on the weak. The powerful continued to exploit the helpless, and the galaxy continued to drown in blood and suffering. We did not want to interfere. We wanted to live in peace, to keep to ourselves, to let the rest of the universe sort out its own problems. But we learned something important over the past century. Peace cannot exist in a galaxy that rewards violence. Mercy cannot survive in a universe that punishes kindness. So we have made a decision. The transmission paused. Then Chen Wei's face appeared on every screen, her eyes looking directly into the cameras as if she could see everyone watching. We are not going to hide anymore. We are not going to pretend to be weak or primitive or harmless. We have power that the galaxy has never seen before, and we have decided to use it, not to conquer, not to enslave, not to build an empire on the bones of others. We have decided to use our power to protect, to defend, to give hope to those who have none. From this day forward, any species that wishes to escape the Dominion may come to us. Any world that faces conquest may call on us for aid. Any people who want to be free will find a friend in humanity. To the empires of the galaxy, we are not your enemies. We do not want war. We want peace. But if you force us to fight, we will not hesitate. We have seen what you do to the weak. We have seen the suffering you cause, and we will not allow it to continue. This is not a threat. This is a promise. The galaxy is going to change. The old ways are ending. And humanity is going to be there to help build something better. We have been waiting for this moment for a very long time. And now it has finally arrived. The transmission ended, but its effects had only begun. Across the galaxy, species that had been conquered by the Dominion heard the message. Worlds that had been enslaved for generations learned that someone was willing to stand up for them. People who had lost hope found a reason to believe again, and they began to rebel. The first uprisings started within days. Slave populations on mining worlds refused to work. Subject species on conquered planets demanded independence. Soldiers who had been forced to serve the Dominion turned against their masters. The Dominion tried to crush the rebellions. They sent fleets and armies, just as they always had. But this time, something was different. This time, someone was watching. The first Dominion fleet to attempt to suppress a rebellion was stopped before it could reach its destination. The ships simply could not move. Their engines worked, their systems functioned, but no matter what direction they tried to go, they ended up back where they started. They were trapped in a loop of space that had no exit. A message appeared on their screens. This world is under protection. It was signed with a single word: humanity. The second fleet tried a different approach. They sent small ships, fast and stealthy, to infiltrate the rebel world and assassinate its leaders. None of the ships returned. Their final transmissions showed strange shadows moving through the corridors, figures that could not be hit, could not be stopped, could not be fought. The third fleet did not go at all. The commanders looked at what had happened to the others and decided that suppressing one rebellion was not worth the risk, and so the rebellion spread. Within a year, over 100 worlds had declared independence from the Dominion. Within 2 years, the number had grown to 1,000. The empire that had conquered 3 galaxies was crumbling from within, and there was nothing anyone could do to stop it. In the council chamber of the Dominion's capital, The High Chancellor watched the reports come in, world after world slipping away, fleet after fleet failing to stop the tide. Everything his ancestors had built, everything he had spent 3,000 years maintaining, falling apart before his eyes. "What do we do?" one of his advisors asked. "How do we stop this?" The High Chancellor did not answer. He was looking at a small holographic display on his private console. It showed Earth, the little blue world that had started all of this. So peaceful, so innocent-looking, so utterly terrifying. "We do not stop it," he said finally. "We cannot stop it. The humans have shown the galaxy that the Dominion can be defeated. They have given hope to the hopeless. They have changed the rules of the game. Then what do we do?" The High Chancellor turned off the display. "We adapt, we change, or we die." He looked at his advisors with tired eyes. "Those are the only options we have left." On Earth, Admiral Chen Wei watched the galaxy transform. The reports came in daily. Worlds freed, species liberated, empires weakened. Humanity had not conquered a single planet, had not killed a single enemy, but they were changing everything. "Admiral." Captain Vasquez approached her desk. "We are receiving messages from across the galaxy, thousands of them. Species wanting to join us, worlds wanting protection, leaders wanting guidance." "I know. What should we tell them?" Chen Wei stood and walked to the window of her office. Outside, the city of Geneva spread out beneath her, its lights glittering in the darkness. Beyond the city, the stars waited. So many stars, so many worlds, so many possibilities. "Tell them we are coming," she said. "Tell them that humanity is ready to help build something better. Tell them that the old ways are ending, and the new ways are just beginning." She turned back to face Vasquez. "Tell them that they are no longer alone." The message spread across the galaxy, and everywhere it went, it carried hope. In the deepest reaches of space, in places where no Dominion ship had ever traveled, other species heard the message too. Ancient civilizations that had been hiding since before the precursors, lost species that had been thought extinct, beings of such power and mystery that even the old legends barely mentioned them. They heard what humanity had done. They heard the promise that had been made, and slowly, carefully, they began to emerge from the shadows. The galaxy was changing. The old order was falling, and in its place, something new was being born. Humanity had surrounded Earth with fleets once before, in the ancient past, when the species was young and the universe was strange. They had hidden those fleets away, buried them deep, kept them secret for 100,000 years. Now those fleets were awakening, not to conquer, but to protect, not to destroy, but to build, not to dominate, but to lead. And across the stars, 1 billion voices whispered the same question that had haunted the galaxy since the Battle of Earth's shadow. The same question that would echo through history for millennia to come. How long had the humans been out there? How long had they been watching? And what else were they hiding? The answer, of course, was simple. Everything. They had been hiding everything. And now, at last, it was time to show the galaxy what humanity had become. The future was waiting, and humanity was ready.